Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, the metals market, the stock market. We're talking all markets these days on how to make some or a lot of money from the internet. Load of discussion today. We've got gold surging to a record high above 4,600 before a slight pullback. Silver went above $85 too. A lot of demand coming from the safe haven idea and Fed independence concerns. US Senate releases Crypto Market Clarity Act draft bill, which seeks to limit stablecoin rewards on holdings. I'll touch on that today. Funky was speaking about that yesterday, which provided some helpful pretext. And then finally, I think it's actually very big news. Ryan will take us through what we need to know on the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, withdrawing liquidity from the BuyNYC token. It went as high as more than $500 million market cap. And it's actually still settled at around 130. So some of the more meme coin side of things are moving now. We'll try and give a little bit of a review of what kind of tokens are moving and Rahim's thoughts on that. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus a general market discussion. Stay tuned for that. I've got Legendary and Rahim in the co-host seats with me today. We are ready to get into it. Just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is incredibly risky, and we do not know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment at all times. With that out of the way, it is Tuesday. It's the 13th of January, going straight to Rahim today. How are you doing and how are you feeling?
GM, everybody. It's been good. It's a beautiful day. We're feeling productive. The markets are, to be honest, I've been like surprised. I thought after that Pavel's video came out, I thought like markets would be like a lot more volatile just because I think, yes, like we saw like gold and silver is actually like ripping like crazy. But crypto usually trades like a tech stock. So I think it's kind of nice to see that the risk stuff, like you mentioned earlier, is like there's a lot of action on memes. There's a lot of action on NFTs as well, which is kind of like nice to see. But otherwise, it's interesting to see how like markets are like slightly like pivoting. I feel like I still don't have like a strong pulse on like there's just like so much going on in the world and in the political climate in like everyday stuff, and I just feel like I don't know, maybe it's like our PTSD or whatever, but I just feel like the markets are like fairly consistent, and it just like doesn't hit my head in the way that it's supposed to.
You've
But it's
just gotten
definitely an
onto it.
interesting time.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I think it's really important to reflect on that because it isn't normal for us to, just start the new year and just have headline after headline after headline of like not just foreign stuff going on with the Venezuela stuff, nor but then like huge domestic policies. Trump was was doing something with mortgages, trying to stop, rolling out and saying very, very important things with regard to single home ownership and how corporates wouldn't be able to buy up family homes anymore, which is what they have been doing for some time. So it's like the very, very significant moves and news coming out over and over and over again on a routine basis. And it takes me back to the start of the year where we talked about it just being the president's market, especially for crypto. At the top of the year when Trump endorsed crypto, it felt like the whole of crypto just became the president's market. And now it's kind of decoupled from that in some way. And when I say that, I mean crypto itself. You know, I don't necessarily think when Trump says something bullish for the stock market, that's like also bleeding into Bitcoin. There was this talk about how his ratings, crypto basically follows his ratings, and I'd be interested um to track that still. But apart from that, it does feel like the president's market, but not in crypto, if you see what I mean. Does that make sense, Rahim?
Yeah, even like the tariffs thing, it's supposed to come out this week, right? Like, remember, we were talking about this where they were supposed, the Supreme Court was supposed to come out with a verdict on it, and they kind of delayed it. If I'm not mistaken, that's supposed to be like tomorrow or day after. But I just feel like the markets are like, I feel like a couple of months ago we had like a lot of like bullish headline in terms of like institutional like crypto and stuff, and then markets were like not doing well, and now like the world is in like such a weird place politically. And like you said, everything that he's spoken about mortgages, the whole bit about like interest rates on like credit cards, he's talked about that. And then we don't even know what the hell's happening with like tariffs. And for some weird reason, that volatility is just like not in crypto, especially like with like BTC. I feel like some of the alts are like pretty weak, but like Bitcoin has been like doing super well. So it's just like very weird to see like what the hell's going on. And I'm just like, I guess I'm taking it day by day.
Yeah, there's the credit card stuff as well, right? But yeah, as you say, a lot of stuff going on. Ledge, how are you responding to that at the moment? Like, there's a lot of noise. Are you extracting any specific signal from it, or just how are you kind of responding to this kind of really hot start to the year, in the sense that so much is going on, and how are you kind of making sense of it?
I'm in the process of trying to basically adjust so many of my mental models, like having to constantly deal with more and more volatility now, even including gold and silver. You're going to get into the CME changing the trading rules for that as a result of this, and also trying to see what this means for two things: the types of investments or like participation I want to do with. I do assume that this is going to be a more DeFi heavy year for me, just because there's so much price movement which I can benefit from. And then the question becomes, apart from just farming LPs, is there smart things to airdrop farm as a result of that, to at least have active capital? I still have to have the lens of protecting my capital from a euro perspective, right? Because the dollar debasement is hurting me. I'm not denominating in dollars. That is the one thing. And the other aspect of that is to basically start thinking more about like holding periods for all the kinds of things I find interesting. So yes, we love the tech plays, we love the defense industry, but how long do I want to hold things for? Like, how long do I want to bet on things? When do I think is silver going to catch up in terms of the demand in terms of the mining supply, and will mark the top? So I think it's a lot more shorter term training for things that I'm long term bullish on. So I'm thinking robotics is going to change the world. AI is changing the world already, but I still don't think that all of these bets can be placed on the same time horizon where I expect that change to happen.
Yeah.
I'm also really curious, Rahim, to hear from you, because you have had like a lot of good trading and mental models when it comes to trading, when it comes to stuff like Pepe. I remember last year you like to say Pepe is like typically 3 times the volatility of ETH. So this is how I like to track and express these bets. Are you adjusting a lot of these rules? Do you still find that some of these mental models are working? Like where is your headed with that new type of market which we're facing right now?
I feel like for me, a lot of those like fundamentals like changed like overnight after that 10-10 thing that happened, because that was the point. Like a lot of the stuff didn't recover. We obviously saw like Pepe pump like crazy the first week of Jan, and in some ways, if you just like look at BTC price back then, it's trying to catch up with the fact that like it was down, whether it's Pepe, whether it's like Pingu and a bunch of stuff. So it was like pretty interesting to see Pepe be up like what 75% in like 48 hours or so. But I just feel like since then it's just been like, I feel like I've had that thesis for such a long time, and suddenly there was like a one day where everything changed, and I just find it very hard to come back to my original thesis, just because like A, we never found out precisely of what really happened, and B, like there's so many alts like haven't recovered since then, but like maybe they're coming back. To be honest, like yeah, this is like one of those times where I'm like very weirded out about like how the market is performing, but there's definitely a lot of like a risk market assets that are going up. There were a bunch of memes that went up. We'll talk about this in a bit, but yeah, I think it's kind of hard to me. The one ecosystem I'm kind of keeping an eye on is definitely on the ton side of things. I know if you guys saw, there were like a couple of days ago, the plush Pepe. This is maybe when you guys were like off. There was a plush Pepe, which is number 2 serial number, sold for around $300,000. I know if you guys covered this, but that's like pretty crazy if you think about it. So I don't know.
B, I think you are muted.
Yeah, these are one of the Telegram NFTs. I think in
Yes.
general, look, guys, I know we like NFTs, but it's happening in the chat as well. The proportion of NFT chat is too high. I'm just going to say that. We love NFTs. We like it as an asset class. You're not going to make money on NFTs. And hopefully I can put in some kind of bottom by creating a bottom and then everyone making a ton of money in NFTs. That can be some kind of reverse signal. But I've noticed in general, like as some NFTs are actually doing much better. So for example, yesterday we spoke about Chimpers, for example, being up 70%. I didn't necessarily see there being any particular like catalyst for that. They've just been doing awesome stuff for a really, really long time. That's nice to see. Some huge big vibes, good vibes club sales in the last 24 hours as well. I think one for like 50 ETH, one for another 10 ETH or something like that. I'll talk about it in the snapshot in a second. So there are things moving, and I wonder the thing that I like, reason why I like always covering the NFT market, to contradict myself for a second, is when punks went to 250, $250,000, which wasn't long ago. Now they're back at 100. I think it's actually a beautiful indicator for the rest of the market. Like when punks go on this humongous run and NFTs all start ripping, like I'm pretty sure that's very, very late stage behavior. People had made a lot of money up until that point, and then we kind of settled all the way back down. And then actually, again, I'm wondering whether some increased NFT activity is just symptomatic of, meme coins started going, NFTs have just started going again. So like you're just feeling a little bit of traction here as a point to maybe start pressing the bid button again. Right,
there's a TCG thing to take into account. So like yesterday, the Logan Paul Pikachu illustrator that's up for auction, which he bought for about $5 million. So in the last 48 hours, it went from like 2.8 to the current bid at 4.8 million right now. I think what's interesting to see, I think there is a big bleed in terms of just like online collectibles in general. Like we've seen this obviously in the Pokemon world. We are seeing this with like One Piece cards. We're seeing like Gary Vee talk about like a lot of his cards and his NFTs. So I feel like there is an appetite in the world right now for like collectibles in some shape or form. Whether it's that sentiments that's like bleeding into the NFTs, of course, very hard to say, but there is definitely like a lot of action, like you mentioned rightfully on the Chimper side. Good Vibes Club, we obviously don't know what the artifact acquisition is, but they are up like 250%. So I don't know, like there's definitely like something happening in some pockets of this industry.
Yeah, I love that take.
And adding to that, I don't know if you guys have seen that yesterday. If we can quickly share the screen with the Lego sets, Pokemon Lego collaboration with obviously Pikachu with Venusaur, Charizard, Blastoise, $650 set, which we're sharing on screen right now. I feel like my whole timeline as these came out was like, just pre-order every set, keep it sealed 5 to 10 years, and then try to flip it for a couple grand. Like this speculative vibe. Obviously, Pokemon has been a thing to speculate on for a long time, but now you have this Lego collaboration. The first thing the timeline is flooded with is, okay, how can we like buy these, hoard these, and try to flip it to someone? So there's definitely this collectible opportunity seeking vibe, which is coming back to the timeline in a strong way. And I'm pre-ordering, by the way. I wanna have that, but I want to build it and I want to have a sealed one as well.
And then 10-15 years later, you're going to use like our future kids to basically exit liquidity and being like, I'm selling this to you.
Yeah, exactly. This is your college fund, but you have to buy it.
Take a loan out against it.
Exactly.
Can pay you back. I mean, I actually like that idea. And one of the things that I've kept saying, every cycle, the teams that are here mature and the industry gets stronger, and that includes the IP stuff. The people that have been building for a long time now have built out not just crypto Twitter reach, they've built out Web2 socials. If you go check out some of these, for example, with Chimpers, their YouTube channel, their TikTok channel is insane, Instagram, like all of these metrics across the board are really, really high. And in an inflating world, I keep saying this, it's why I'm very, I have not been bullish on tokens for a while, although I quite kind of like the idea of pressing a bid on a few things now. Very, very bullish on crypto equity. That includes some of these brands that are either going to TG at some point soon, or if they're not going to TG and they're just going to keep building the brand in an ever inflating world and selling collectibles every now and again, which people clearly really like. So I like taking that direction. We've got a varied show today, though, where we're going to get into a variety of things. We're going to get into the markets as usual. We're going to get into the metals, which are looking strong. And we're going to talk Eric Adams' New York coin. I think that's one of clearly the biggest headlines for today. So let's get into it as usual, starting with the price action. We are looking at Bitcoin up 1.5% to almost 92K. We've got ETH flat at around 3.1. We've got XRP flat at $2, BNB flat around $906. Sol is up 1%, back over $140. We have Hyperliquid up 1% to 24. Zcash is up 1% to 408. Sui is flat at $1.79. On the meme coin side of things, got Doge up a couple of percent to 13 cents, almost 14. Pepe's up 1%, Pump's up a couple of percent, Trump's up a couple of percent. A lot of things up just a couple of percent. Not a big moving day, apart from Melania, just calling this one out, up 25%. I do not know what is going on there. Maybe the movie's coming out. Is the movie coming out at some point? Don't know why that means you should buy the coin, but it's up 40% on the week. I know there's a movie coming out there at some point. Getting into the headlines themselves, we're going to talk about today, as well as the rest of the roundup. Gold surged to a record high above 4,600. Silver went above $85 as well. Not up hugely on the day, but it did kind of just grind higher. We also have the US Senate releasing Crypto Market Clarity Act draft bill, which seeks to limit stablecoin rewards on holdings. And the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, withdraws liquidity from the BuyNYC token. Token launched to stop anti-Semitism in New York, with the token falling from around $500 million market cap to settle at around 130 mil after they withdrew the liquidity. Very strange. Ryan will break that down in a bit. Some other notable price action, other things were moving. Lighter dropped 8% back down to around 2.1 bill FDVs. Kind of big move down for the second biggest perps dex. Dolo's up 51%. Story up 20%, back over a $3 billion FDV. Railgun, the privacy preserving protocol on ETH, up 33%. And Monero up 17%, up to moving towards $700. So Monero's moved big over the last week on the privacy coin narrative, specifically after Chamath mentioned it. Well, he didn't mention it by name, mentioned that a privacy coin would be important, a crypto privacy coin would be important in the future this year. Some notable sales: CryptoPunk floor holding around 91,000. Two big Good Vibes Club sales, one at 50.25 ETH, one at 20 ETH. So very significant sales there. And a VFriends rare robot sold for 20 ETH. Gary V being very active on the timeline recently for his VFriends IP. In other news, Strategy bought $1.25 billion of Bitcoin at around 91.5K. Fogo will list on Binance the L2, was it an L1? I think it's an L1. On January the 15th. So that's in a couple of days. They also announced a further raise of $7 million at a $350 million valuation, with Robot Ventures coming on board. Markets XYZ, built by Kinetic, launched Perpetual's market trading platform. Shadow introduces instant private trading for Solana tokens with Jupiter integration. I was kind of intrigued by that. Tempo launches the Mainnet Explorer. This is the chain by Stripe. Mainnet Explorer behind a password wall. Polymarket has odds at almost 70% for a token launch by the year end for Tempo. And finally, crypto YouTube viewership hits the lowest levels since 2021, signaling weak retail engagement. Those numbers have not been great, but don't worry, modern market numbers are at all-time highs. So that's what we care about mainly. That's the roundup, guys. Before we get to the main headlines to discuss that in more detail, coming to you, Legendary, first to pick out something that you like here, that you find interesting, that you think there's an opportunity with, then we'll go to Ryan.
The last piece, the crypto YouTube viewership to hit the lowest level since 2021, is a super interesting one to me, because it ties so strongly to something we've been talking about on the show and watching closely, which is our own basically metrics from the modern market across Spotify, Apple Music, X Video, and YouTube as well as our follower growth. And I think it's interesting to see how this is moving hand in hand. If we look at the three of us, include Brad into that mix. Obviously, Brad had his mega ETH growth breakout moment, But I think where we move in sync is that either we all are growing at, relatively speaking, roughly the same rate in proportion to our already existing follower count, or we are stagnating or growing slower. And that is also tracking, unsurprisingly, with some of the modern market data. And there's been a bit of a slower period towards the end of the year, but it did start to bounce back up again. And it's also different across channels. Like stuff like Spotify is just growing for us. That there is no dip in Spotify growth. There's been a slowdown on the X video stuff, which is now appearing to go up again. And YouTube has not been following this lowest levels, but obviously we've also not been doing YouTube for the last 4 years, so that's not unsurprising. Not surprising here. But the key takeaway for me is that I think all of this, like sentiment data, watching how shows in an industry that you're interested in doing stats and numbers wise, will be extremely helpful to understand who is currently interested in what and where those viewers and ultimately where this attention is moving.
I agree. I literally wrote a note to myself yesterday, which was 3 words: have valuable data. It's just like with in conjunction with some other notes that I was making on things that we want to do next, in the year, and things that I want to prioritize. The data and the reading of data, specifically being able to leverage all of these agents to do things with it, maybe graph them in interesting ways, compare things in interesting ways, pull things from places that maybe was too difficult to get access to before. And now with Claude, you can do very, very interesting things. I think this is going to be really, really valuable. And the people who learn to cut the data and present the data and package the data in the most helpful ways will be super important. And in the same way, it's really important to be able to prompt the AI to do certain things. It'll be really important to just ask the right question. If you can ask the right questions, you'll be able to slice it in interesting ways, in a valuable way. So I'm very, very pro that. And I think that's going to be something we try to present to our readers, listeners, watchers across the board as we slice information in ways that maybe other people don't look at it. And I feel like that's what we've kind of done already to this point, and it's made us fairly successful. So I agree with that point. I like that idea. Rahim, what's catching your attention? Do you have a view on that specifically? Are you finding something else in the market interesting that we're not paying attention to? What do you want to point out?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Just like coming to the crypto YouTube viewership thing, I think they've also really tightened their rules in terms of like what you can post about crypto. And I think that nuance is important. There's some traders I follow who would like create those, there's like classy, shilly videos where they're like, oh, the coin to buy for like 2025 or 2026 or whatever.
Sure.
I've seen a bunch of them post that those videos were like taken down and stuff. So I feel like that nuance is like very significant because they probably attract the highest level of engagement. So I think
Sure.
that's important to note. On the data side, it's interesting that you guys bring this up because we were doing something with some of our data the other day, and I found out that our male to female ratio on Twitter versus Instagram is completely flipped. Very interesting to see. And I was like, whoa, this is very fascinating because I think so far, just from an efficiency point of view, we kind of output like the same content, whatever we put out for Twitter, we repurpose it for Instagram. But to see that our viewership is like opposite. So it was like 30% female, 70% male on Twitter, and it's completely flipped on Instagram. I was like, this is something I've never looked into. Clearly something to build around it, but I completely agree. I think contextualizing that data is very valuable. But just coming back to one particular piece of news that happened this morning, did you guys read up about the psyop anime meme coin that pumped over the night?
I did. I heard about it. I forgot to put that one in, but
So yeah, so like a TLDR is like psyop anime is basically, if you think about, how Beeple does his artworks, right? Where he takes like everyday events or whatever's happening in the world, he makes like an artwork out of it. Psyop anime is basically an online handle that does the same thing with anime films. So they take current events, they do like a satire with what's happening in the world, and like they've been like doing really well. Like always, there is people who've like created like a meme coin around it. And then essentially yesterday, Elon Musk ended up following the Twitter account. Again, this was probably he was interested in the films that they've been like making. However, that ended up taking the meme coin to about like 19-20 million. So like nothing too crazy if you think about like the scale of stuff we are seeing obviously with like Eric Adams, or like we've seen with like Trump. But again, one of those like points to like, oh, like this anime IP culture is clearly blowing up around the world. You see like Mr. Beast is like heavily like talking about like anime, and you have like stuff like this that's clearly getting like a lot of like traction and stuff. I definitely think like there is something to keep an eye out, just be observant about like this whole online creation when it comes to like IPs and where we could go with in the digital world. So yeah, I thought that was something that was interesting that happened last night.
That is interesting. And well, interesting on two levels. One, I think there is like demand to bid stuff. 20 mil is not the highest. And often that was the kind of number that things would cap out at as we've seen this market downturn over the last few months. But I'm pretty encouraged by White Whale going so high. I know it's pulled back significantly today. So White Whale is down like, what is it? Like 15% or something, back to around 130 mil, 140 mil, I think. But I'm very encouraged by that one going high. And I think there could be some more 20s and 30s at least coming out the gate on the back of that. If White Whale can go higher, then that kind of raises the ceiling. I think that's probably how people are going to think about it. That's how I'm monitoring the situation. Ledge, do you have a view there? Do you want to press the buy button on any of these? Do you have a view? What do you think?
Not really. Not because I don't think that there's good opportunities out there, because I just was not paying attention to any of this. So I completely was unaware of PSYOP anime, but yeah, I love it by looking at it. It's just not where my focus is at right now. And I feel like, as much as I like my thesis of being able to, or advocating for focusing on more than one thing, focusing on 2-3 things, and not having this like single focus point on, especially I feel like now is a time where being a generalist and understanding more things is super, super valuable. I just don't have the capacity for these attention coins, while at the same time more focused on the precious metals, the stock side of things, and some more of the DeFi plus RWA stuff. I would love to get into that, but I have to be realistic and say I just can't track that at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think catching something much more my style will hopefully be I'm a bit annoyed. Like, I'm not annoyed with myself for like missing PSYOP anime. Like, you needed to be there at the time. If you missed it, and Elon followed, and then you missed that moment, then it's done. I don't think you can really beat yourself up about that. I literally had written down XMR on that whiteboard that you guys can see slightly behind me, for Monero and Zcash at the lows. And I just didn't get around to doing it on the weekend. And so that is an annoying one for me, because that's one where there's this like that's much more the style of thing that I would do. Like, try to take a decent position in something which I think has a strong narrative and plus fundamentals, frankly, for the medium term, bid that and ride it up however much, whether it's 30%, 40%, 50%, 100%, take profits at different positions, or if as the narrative evolves, you update your thesis to, okay, we're raising price targets here or reducing them or whatever. That's more of the one that I think was on the table for us with the way things were moving, and probably should have hit that. Actually, I'm still open to that one. Actually, I'm still open to that one for the next few months. Just kind of looking for an entry point. Doesn't feel great buying it up after like 33% in the last few days or something. So I'll keep an eye on that. That's just one. I think it's helpful to have that conversation and reflect on, like, okay, well, these are the fast moving ones. These are maybe the narratives over the next few months. And, we pat ourselves on the back when we do good ones. Sometimes we miss it completely. But we'll figure it out next time. Right. Let's get to the main headlines, guys. We've got some interesting stuff. Ledger going to do a bit of a market roundup here. Let's get to the assets which keep making more highs, and then take us through what else you're looking at.
Absolutely. Very, very interesting day in the market as a result of the news which we covered yesterday, which was to do with that conflict between Trump and Powell increasing and Powell making that video statement. We want to take a look at what that did to the markets. And it is interesting or unsurprising probably to see that it had a good and positive impact on both the gold and silver price. Silver is currently trading at 85.5 dollars. It's just up, just quote unquote, just up 0.5% on the day, up still 34% over the last 30 days. Whereas gold now has corrected down a bit, but it's still trading at essentially an all-time high at $4,580 per ounce. And because of that volatility, we have seen something unprecedented, which is the CME, the Chicago Exchange, to switch to a percentage-based system instead of fixed prices for margin as these metals hit record prices. So the thinking here basically is that in the old system, you could not keep pace with the gold and silver surge. It required frequent manual adjustments as you had these price swings intensifying, as you had the rally going on, and it didn't make sense to go for the fixed price model. So this is why they did the switch to percentage-based model, which is basically a very, very strong sign because it is telling you that the CME thinks that this extreme volatility is here to stay and that these price swings will go on. And of course, that can also mean that it increases the cost of trading on the one hand, because it's percentage based as prices go up. But on the other hand, there is a potential mechanism when the margin requirements were to jump suddenly, and traders who don't have enough spare cash would be forced to sell some of their gold or silver positions. So it could also trigger a bit of a price drop here. But I found that very interesting to include because the CME is essentially telling you, hey, this volatility we think is here to stay. And it's so significant that we have to adjust the way how we are pricing things. On the stock side of things, yesterday was a good day on the stock market. Everything was up a bit. Pre-market is pretty flat on the day. We're going to see what that will mean for stocks opening later today. The more significant thing to point out here is CNN's Fear and Greed Index, which is now entering the greed territory. It is at 58 at the moment, whereas the CoinMarketCap Fear and Greed Index, let's get it up on screen, should be at 41. And it's showing a major discrepancy. Basically, we are at neutral almost to the part where we're getting a bit anxious again, whereas stocks are clearly entering that greed zone again, have left the neutral territory. So this discrepancy, when it also comes to sentiment, is increasing as we see the stock rally continue while crypto is mostly flat.
Yeah, my thinking for the stock market at the moment is definitely that, and maybe that accurately reflects it, right? But I just think we go higher. I think 2026 is a year where things will want to go higher. I think Trump and team have come out with very, very aggressive projections. Again, I talk about the interview that Lutnick did with Chamath for around an hour, more than an hour, very detailed interview, talking about 6% growth this year at some point in time. I don't know at what point. They think that they're going to hit that point at some point, which is very, very high. And I think that's going to reflect in all asset prices. And if you think about it, I don't think you have tops or significant tops when everyone is too scared to be allocated. Like, I don't know that people do own their 10% in gold yet. Like, I don't know that people have definitely allocated there. It wasn't normal. It's not normal for our generation to have been hoarding gold. It's not normal for our generation to have been holding a proportion of silver. It was normal to be maybe, we maybe branch off and go in different directions in crypto. But for everyone else, it's normal to just chuck all your money into stocks. if you are an asset holder, right? Some people don't have any stocks at all. But if you are an asset holder, you go all into stocks and you just keep riding the market over and over again. And that's what's been the winning formula. And we've only been like a year into this turn. And I don't know if people have, like, no one's messaged. Okay, maybe a couple of people I've spoken about in person with gold, but no one else has said, no, you know, we talk about those messages you get from friends like, oh, shall I buy some Bitcoin now or something? I haven't heard anyone say anything about, oh, shall I get some gold or shall I get some whatever? I don't know about you guys. Ryan, what's your view there?
You know, it's funny. I was having this thought the other day. I don't know if you guys remember because I brought it up on the show last year. For the longest time, until like, you know, the time last year in November, the year before in November, when Ripple pumped by like $100 billion, there was a train station right in front of my house that had the Ripple ad for 6 months. I would see it every single day, did
Wow.
not own a dollar in it and stuff. About like 4 or 5 days ago, and like for people who haven't been to Dubai, like putting posters and things on the wall is like kind of like illegal. No one does that over here. However, right outside my apartment, I found a wall where there was like a poster that somebody had ripped off, which said like buy gold XYZ XYZ, and there was a date on it, which is like 6th of June last year. And I was like, should I just be going on the street and just like looking for advice and buying things like that and stuff? But that was just like a funny anecdote. But in general, I kind of like agree with you. I, however, have seen like some conversations with like some of my friends who've not even been like in crypto and just be like, oh yeah, like I've been investing on like this app, and what the hell is happening with like gold and like similar. Definitely not at the same cascade we would see crypto at as. But I kind of like very much agree with you. I just don't think still like a huge chunk of like the younger generation owns a lot of these like precious metals and stuff, which I don't know, maybe you could argue that, oh, this is like the inflection point where these generations become the exit liquidity for the older generations, and we kind of look into doing that. Or like, you know, everyone just goes like, yeah, maybe like stock is the play and stuff. But I kind of agree with that sentiment. I don't think a lot of people do own as much.
Okay, Ledge, what do you think?
I don't think that I agree that people don't own the gold they want to own. And I think what I would really like to see is sort of a sentiment indicator, which basically showing what is cooler right now, gold or Bitcoin. And I would argue this is even for the younger generation shifting in gold's favor. There is an excellent paper which was published September, October, stuff like that last year, called Gold and Bitcoin, which is basically looking at a couple of things, price correlation, etc. And gold and Bitcoin used to be pretty correlated in terms of their performance up until the year of 2024 and 2025. That correlation did break down, as obviously BTC fell 7% or so over the year, while gold was performing massively. It was gold up 70-ish, I don't know, 50, 60, 70-ish percent over that year. And I think that part of that is to do with the crisis hedge now playing more out in gold's favor, which was and has historically been gold's role, and BTC has not lived up to that last year. It was more the hype asset in terms of, ooh, all the regulations are going to change, and Trump is the crypto president, which he, you know, quite frankly speaking, is. But that is also, or also has changed sort of the narrative for BTC, at least for last year. And I think this is why these two assets started to track so closely. And I think as the result of that, it is now the case that the younger generation is also looking at gold and is suddenly more interested in that. Whereas, like, you know, being a gold bug was maybe something that you would more associate. I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but with the boomer generation, it was not really the most interesting asset for millennials, for Gen Z, and certainly not for Gen Alpha. But we started to speak about gold, I feel like pretty early on last year. Got interesting for us, and then there's a trickle down effect, and now I see it as a thing that is even popping more up on TikTok. You have more viral content about gold as well, so there is sort of a generational shift going on there. And I feel like this like coolness, not the Bitcoin dominance chart, not a fear and greed index, but just a coolness sentiment vibe indicator, which is looking at gold on the one hand and BTC at the other hand, would A, be super interesting to track. I conceptually no idea how to do that right now, and B, I think would be heavily in gold's favor right now.
Yeah, I think that's right. We've been speaking how most people just think crypto's a scam. If they got burnt in 2021, they think it's a scam. And actually, I mean, maybe it's worth pivoting to what was going to be the final headline. So maybe let's set up the final headline for now. And Rahim can take us through what happened with the Eric Adams coin, because, you know, when things like this happen, I think to the extent that crypto is still part of this narrative war where you're trying to win it, trying to showcase the best parts of it, if people get aggressively burned doing this type of stuff, then it's just never going to take off. I mean, I think the people who are speculators will continue to speculate and play the game, but and maybe that's actually the realistic thing here. It's never, this type of crypto is never going to go anywhere else. This is pure speculation games, and then, but it's not going to do wonders for its reputation. It's going to tarnish everything above it as well. I think that's what people don't understand. But Ryan, why don't you take us through it, and then we can get into.
Yeah, so the hottest news for the last 24 hours is the NYC token that was launched by the former mayor, Eric Adams. A couple of things kind of played out in this story. So this all started with, and this is something I feel like wasn't covered in a lot of these articles, is he actually went in Times Square and did like an announcement around it. So this isn't something just like came out of like nowhere. So in some ways he had talked about this like publicly. There was like a signage that he was like standing in front of, and he did speak about it. uh the way it's positioned, and if you go guys like go check out like the website, it's positioned in this like very dreamy way where it's like, oh, the idea is like this token represents like the people of like the fastest moving city in the world. We are focused on developing and helping like the world move. It's about the people, it's about the diversity, and the biggest moat that they've used is essentially this idea that we want to fight against this anti-Americanism, like fight against like anti-Semitism. So there's like a political angle taken to this to kind of like really play down on the political side of the industry. There are a couple of things that are like super important to note. So in general, back in 2021, Eric Adams kind of essentially named himself as the Bitcoin mayor because he was like pretty pro Bitcoin there. So I guess like there was always like some pocket of like crypto that he had like already talked about. The coin obviously ran up to like 500 million, and then the liquidity had been like pulled out. There is some conversation around it because there's no official communication that has come from Eric Adams. And a couple of news media outlets have reached out to their team, but there was some conversation around this idea that there is a chance that sure they were planning to launch like a token, but maybe the token that actually launched wasn't done by him. Of course, take this with like a pinch of salt because like nothing can be confirmed, but the website was just like similar scams that you see in our industry. The website was registered just a couple of hours before, and we saw about like $2.5 million of liquidity pulled out with this idea of like, oh, we are taking this money to help the cause. I think in general, there is this like, I've seen this notion in like meme coins a lot often where the interests of the investors are not aligned with the people who create the coin. Because for them, and I've seen this a lot, they will be like, oh, this is like a coin, a pump fund coin created for a YouTuber, a creator, a president. They are doing it to support a cause, whether it's like a political one, whether it's like a creative endeavor. And their whole idea is this is perfect. This is essentially for them, it's like crowdfunding, and we can take this money and use it for the thing that this coin was supposed to be. However, your token holders don't want you to do that. They don't want you to take out the token, to price out the token. They want you to like keep the liquidity in. And I feel like there's this misalignment altogether, because at least in the communication everywhere, it's like, oh, I'm going to use this like $2.5 million to actually help Black communities, to help fight anti-Americanism. So I feel like there's like a corporate social responsibility angle we see throughout like these tokens and stuff. But it just goes back to speaking to the bit that you were talking about, Bcheck, which is just like, if you go in the comments, if you see like people are like, this is why crypto is a scam, this is why we'll never come out of this industry, we'll never be taken like seriously, it's because of things like these that happen. And like a lot of times it's very hard to know that how much involvement was with the person, because like in his announcement, when he did the announcement at Times Square, apparently based on several media news outlets, he mentioned there are some deep pocket investors that are part of this ecosystem. However, they've chosen to be anonymous. So sounds kind of shady, but yeah, like this was like the big news. It's trading at like about like 120 130 million, but it's also because at least the current website says that about like 70% of like the token is like not in circulating supply at the moment. So kind of take that with a pinch of salt.
Summary. As you say, a lot of stuff going on with it, a lot of objectives, a lot of interesting price action. I think, I mean, my headline take is that even if it's supply controlled, it clearly showed the market wants to bid stuff now. It's great timing for something like this after the trenches, the Solana trenches specifically seem to have like got a little bit of life. And actually, do you not think 130 for something which seemingly just had all of its liquidity removed, even though there's like no official correspondence on this, is pretty high. Like the fact it went to 500 something completely out the gate on seems really high, and then even settling at 100 something feels really high to me. Is that just me? Like, is this a buy here? Like, what are we doing here? What do you think?
No, I think, yeah, I think it just goes. I think what would be interesting to see is I don't know what is like Trump trading at, because I think it's kind of interesting to see at what it was trading at, like at its all-time high, compared to what it is trading at now. But yeah, I don't know. Like again, like we don't know who are these people like holding it, and again, what is this like NYC token? The angle he's taken, like even if like when you were showing like the screen, the line that it said was the digital heartbeat of New York City. So they're trying to sell you like there's this like beautiful mission behind it, and they're gonna help like scholarship like students and help them get educated or whatever. But that all comes at the bank of on the back of essentially like liquidating that token.
Hang on a sec. How is this not different to Libra, which basically ended the whole market? I mean, obviously that was Argentina. The president was involved, so it's like a rung up above the former mayor of one of the biggest cities. But that one also, if you remember, it had like this social cause attached to it. It was like, okay, you're going to buy this token, we're going to use the money to do this and that, and then it just rugged, from what I remember. Why is this no different?
It isn't. I mean, like the
It isn't.
chart does. It's just that I think the only nuance I would make is that I feel like with Libra, there was like a lot of speculation around like a lot of the, at least the known keywords in our space, and like a lot of people had gotten involved. However, like this token came out of nowhere, and like seems like a lot of like CT didn't even have an idea or didn't even get into it.
Okay, so maybe that time it was like it was too close to home. Then maybe there's some insider trading going on. There was whispers going around, whereas this, at least seemingly, just came out of nowhere. In principle, though, that doesn't necessarily change the the product, right? It's still in essence the same type of thing. So that's an interesting comparison to make. Ledge, coming to you here for a thought before we hit the final headline today. What do you make of this token? I think that's like very, very huge amounts involved here for what we're talking about.
Yeah, I find it very, very weird, the whole story. Maybe one thing to add is that out of that 2.5 mil liquidity, which has been pulled out a bit later, 1.5 mil, that was after the drop has been added again, but there's like still 900 something ish K, which are missing. And there was also an interview with Adams in Fox, and it is so vague. And what he's saying doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry for that. So let me read a bit from that. So he's saying, let's look at the best use case of blockchain, Walmart. Walmart is using blockchain right now to deal with the tracking of food and tracking of the goods in the stores. It is transparent, anyone can see it. And when you look at this coin, our New York City coin, the money that is generated from this coin, we're going to zero in how do we stop this massive increase of anti-Semitism across our country, across the globe, and how do we deal with the increase in anti-Americanism? And I'm not getting the
not seeing the
talking about Walmart and them using blockchain to track logistics and to track basically across and along their supply chain to what the New York City coin is doing. It doesn't make any sense at all.
We had Ovi on yesterday talking about brand coins. Now we have city coins. Every city should have its coin, and the coin with the highest market cap is the best city in the world.
Yeah.
In fact, we've done this before, haven't we? Didn't we? Remember there was country coins.
This nuking of country coins. It was a base protocol where you could basically be more popular, and if you have a higher market cap, I think you can nuke another country. Oh, and also as a part of this interview, which this CoinDesk article pointed out, is that there's been a couple of verbal hiccups, and that included calling blockchain repeatedly blockchain technology. So I don't really think that he knows what he's doing with that.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's, cities are complicated, and therefore the coins of cities are also complicated.
We need the
Cities are-
blockchain to fix it, right?
Yeah, we got to implement a large scale blockchain to fix New York City.
Check is thinking certain meme coins are going to 20, 30 million. He's saying that 120, 130 million. Maybe it's not that dumb bad. How is this guy getting bullish on these tokens? This is either the absolute bottom or this is the absolute top.
I'm feeling, look, guys, we have the spider senses on this show. We're very, very good at the top. And you know that for a fact. Over the summer, we were saying it the whole time, to the point where everyone in the chat, Telegram chat, YouTube comments, apart from English, who was delighting in the bearishness, everyone else was politely requesting some bullishness, which we did not oblige with. I'm open to it here. I'm going to go bid some stuff after the show today. Everything that I wanted to bid's up like 20%. It's not ideal. I'm gonna find a spot, and then I'm gonna bid some stuff. That's my instinct at the moment, is what I'm feeling. Okay, and maybe we'll talk about the stuff that we bid or try to get exposure to on the show tomorrow. 3-month outlooks. That's what we're usually good at. Final headline before we close off for the day. This is the news. More on the administrative side, the legal side. US Senate reveal clarity draft limiting stablecoin rewards on stablecoin holdings. This is news which we did speak about yesterday, actually, so I just want to touch on it again. The bill seeks to bar digital asset providers from paying interest just for holding a stablecoin, but would allow activity-based rewards tied to actions like transacting, staking, providing liquidity, or posting collateral. So the read is, this is coming from the block, that US senators drew a sharp line on stablecoin rewards in the bill. And you can't just get the yield simply by holding stablecoins, but it should allow activity-linked incentives, which is not actually entirely dissimilar to how DeFi works now, right? You're not receiving any yield automatically on your stablecoins. You have to do something with them. However, remember, there were instances where there were chains like Blast, which had USDB, which then kind of converted your USDC into a yield-bearing dollar-denominated stablecoin. And I guess that's different though, right? Because USDB was a different thing. That's not the same as Circle. That's not the same as Tether-issued stablecoins. That's not the same as Circle-issued stablecoins. I guess it's saying, though, that if you are one of those teams creating that type of product, you would not be allowed to simply pass on that yield. So that's that. We're going to keep an eye on it. Doesn't quite sound as harsh as maybe what we were expecting when we had the discussion yesterday, but Funky has his hand raised, so I'm sure he'd be able to provide some additional context here before we close out for the day.
Hey, thanks, V. Just a couple quick points of note that, to your point, are administrative. One is that, so there's two main committees in the Senate that are looking at marking up the bill, the Senate Banking Committee and then the Senate Agriculture Committee. Don't ask why. Banking is going to do it Thursday. Originally, Ag was supposed to do it on Thursday as well. And I saw a notification that they punted and they're not going to be doing it till the last week of January. So we're probably not going to have any significant action until February on the Clarity Act more broadly. Another thing that's worth noting is Senator John Kennedy, who is on the Senate Banking Committee, was not happy about the Jerome Powell stuff and said, we need this like a hole in the head. So there's now, that continued fracturing of Republicans that don't like some of the things that Trump is doing. And he very publicly stated this yesterday. And then I'll have something interesting probably a little bit later in the day. There's an opportunity through the Blockchain Association they're having a meeting today at 11:30 a.m. with Patrick Witt, who is now the executive director of the Crypto Council, the thing that Bo Hines used to be before he moved on to Tether. And so I'll have like a chance to do a Q&A with him later today. So it should be some interesting U.S. political correspondent updates tomorrow.
Very interesting. Yeah, let's hear the updates tomorrow. Keen to hear those. Appreciate it as always, Funky. And guys, if there is nothing else, thank you so much for joining us. That's our show for the day, wrapping up 30 seconds early. Unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. Got to end the show because I said I want to go and bid some assets. I think we'll discuss the strategies in the next few days. Thank you to my co-host Legendary and Rahim for joining. As always, thank you so much for joining us. We do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, live on X Video, and YouTube, and Apple, and Spotify, and on TikTok. So follow us on all those platforms. If you are following us on any of those places, please hit the like and subscribe button. We don't ask often. It does help a lot. YouTube's up to 1.8K subscribers. We appreciate it. Our Telegram is up to 230-ish users. If you want to participate in Telegram now, it is going to be from 2026 onwards a paid one-off entry. DM the Modern Market account. We can send you the details and get you in. Super active, super interesting, just fun group chat to participate in as we navigate the crypto universe and the other universe as well, stocks, other thoughts about leveraging AI and all this stuff that we're doing as well. So if you're interested, DM the Modern Market account. We can send you the details. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.